That will be a good move because I think a lot of people also, I think they don't have a Aadhar card with them.
My point is that this is a good decision by court to remove that ban, because since India, you know, there are 100 million people in India, almost 1 billion people. So in that case, you need time to bring in changes.
And I personally want to congratulate Mirror Now channel for having taken up this issue for quite some time, and I've been repeatedly arguing that till such time the actual drawbacks in Aadhar are not appropriately addressed, there should be a hiatus, there should be a current status quo, and it should not be made completely mandatory.
Massive Mirror Now impact. Banks and service providers will now have to specify the last date for Aadhar seeding through SMSs and emails. This is on the basis of a direction from the Supreme Court of India. Mirror Now, in fact, has been relentlessly questioning the coercive behavior of banks and telecom companies over Aadhar seeding, even as the top court is yet to hear a clutch of Aadhar-related petitions. Top court of this country was of the opinion that the banks and the mobile companies should take it on themselves to not create panic. The Supreme Court also categorically stating that it was the bounden duty of the banks and the mobile companies to send out detailed messages to the citizens informing them about the extension of the timeline. The Apex Court has also asked banks and telecom companies to refrain from creating panic among people. But the other concern over the security risks posed by Aadhar still remain. In an exclusive conversation with Mirror Now, BJP MP Subramanian Swamy reiterated that the biometric data collected for Aadhar could easily be compromised.
The Supreme Court has got a constitutional bench going to this question on the privacy issue. And I would say, judging by past judgments, they should strike down the Aadhar in fact.
Mirror Now welcomes the interim relief granted to Indians by the Supreme Court. But the big question stays. Even though deadlines on Aadhar linking have been relaxed, clarity is still elusive. On Mirror Now, we ask again, should India link bank accounts and phone numbers to Aadhar? Or should we wait? Mirror Now report.
Well, the deadline for linkage has now been moved to the 31st of March and the 9th or 6th of February, I beg your pardon, as far as mobile companies are concerned. Joining me on the show this evening, Vijay Jolly, Senior BJP leader, Kailash Vasudev, Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court, Mohammad Khan of the Congress, Mohan Guruswamy, economist and chairperson and founder of the Centre for Policy Alternatives, Ritesh Bhatia, cybersecurity expert, Raghu Godavar, member of Rethink Aadhar, Gopal Krishna, convener of the Citizens Forum for Civil Liberties, and Thomas Franco, General Secretary of the All India Bank Officers Confederation. I welcome all of you to this conversation. I'm going to start with Thomas Franco. Thomas Franco, you had an appeal as well in the Supreme Court, but this is a welcome announcement from the Supreme Court for you?
To some extent, at least, a small relief has been given. We wanted that there should be a stay till the court determines the final decision. But that did not happen. At least now they have said that don't pressurize the people and inform the people that this last date is this, and that's all. But the coercion to some extent can come down, and now the banks have to act, the mobile companies have to act. Because see, I was giving to our advocate information.
Yes.
On 2nd November, one of our petitioners, Mr. Devasahayam IAS, retired,
yes.
And he receives a message from his bank saying that account 17,500 debited for such and such. Please link Aadhar to your account by 30/11/17. Earlier
so they've changed the deadline on their own, yes.
Yeah, from December, it was preponed to November. And because there is so much of pressure on the banks from the finance ministry, banks are taking steps that, okay, let us do it fast.
What kind of pressure came from the finance ministry?
See, there are few things. One, the repeated circulars asking for data, how much you have completed. Number two, there are regular review meetings in which even the finance minister calls the MDs and chairmen of the bank, and there it is discussed. So when some pressure is put from the government that you have to finish this within this date, the banks are left with no other alternative than reminding the customers once again. And that is putting problem for the bankers as well as for the customers.
For the customers. Let me bring in Vijay Jolly, senior BJP leader. Vijayji, the Supreme Court telling the government to back off, literally, a rap on the knuckles of the central government on this entire Aadhar linkage.
I don't consider it to be a rap on the nap for the government. The government has a very open mind on it, and it was the Supreme Court itself in an earlier case in the Lok Niti Foundation case, where the Supreme Court itself had stated that there was an urgent need for linkages of the Aadhar card to the bank accounts as well as to the mobile company, to the mobile phones. Now, well, the mobile companies and the banks might have acted over jealously in implementing the earlier orders of the Supreme Court. And of course, the government of India is citizen friendly. The government of India
so Vijay, you deny, do you deny any of the
citizens' right and the security of the Indian citizens are concerned?
So Vijayji, do you deny the fact that Thomas Franco right now of the All India Bankers Association is telling us that the Finance Ministry put a lot of pressure on banks to get this done? The Finance Ministry was sending circular after circular, asking for update after update, and that is why the banks reacted in the manner that they did, because the banks actually would much rather hawk home loans than force people to sign up for Aadhar, because that's where they make their money, isn't it?
You see, in India, you have to take the whole issue in a very wider perspective. In India, we are all accustomed to do the things at the last moment. Even if there's a circular saying 31st is the last date, we tend to file our returns only on the 30th night, on the 31st morning. And if the Ministry of Finance or the banking regulatory authority did think it proper to put adequate pressure on the system of the day to ensure the adequacy and also the Supreme Court guidelines to be adhered within a time period framework, I do not consider it to be infringement of the normal citizens' right to privacy. It is the government of India which has a very clear and open mind as far as the security of the citizens are concerned, security vis-a-vis the cyber security is concerned, saving the citizens from cyber frauds and other related matters.
Well, you've said a lot of things, and I'm going to now open up this panel so our panel can react to what you've said. I'm going to start with Mr. Mohan Guruswamy. Mohan Guruswamy, if Vijay Jolly and a couple of other senior BJP representatives have told us over the course of today that they believe the banks and the mobile companies were acting overzealously and overstepping in their brief in the kind of messages that were sent out, I believe that is the RBI's job to regulate. The RBI has found itself lacking again with complete inability to do its job, Mr. Guruswamy.
Yeah, overzealousness is the hallmark of this government. It does whatever it does it overzealously and makes a mess of it. And demonetization is a classic example. You could have had a money exchange without all that tamasha, but they went for it. Same thing with Aadhar. You could have had it very straight and simple, given people time, make sure that everybody had their right Aadhar numbers, right Aadhar cards, and even, and given people time to do it. There was no great urgency to do it right now within a certain period of time. And this whole business of scaring people up, keep sending them reminders all the time. Now, I linked my Aadhar to my phone months ago, but even now I keep getting SMSs saying that if you don't link it, it will be cut. Now, there's no need for this, and you set off a panic, and you had the zealousness spread to all sections of our life. If you go to a hospital, they want your Aadhar number. Now, the certain people who have certain kinds of diseases, they don't want it to be linked to the Aadhar number. They want it to be done quietly. You know, why should you invade privacy this way? You need Aadhaar for banks, yes, I understand. You need Aadhaar for telephone, I understand. But why for everything else? Why why should airlines have your Aadhaar number when you buy a ticket? Why should your frequent flyer systems have your Aadhaar number when you are logging in mileage? Now this is the kind of thing which worries people. Why does the government want to know all these things? And therefore people consider this intrusive and coercive. I think this could have been handled more sensibly, and they didn't do it.
I want to bring in Kailash Vasudev.
What they did with demonetization.
Kailash Vasudev, the Supreme Court is turning into Superman because it has to swoop in every time and rescue the Indian citizen from various things that are going wrong as far as policy is concerned. And it has done so one more time by giving us clarity and use the words very clearly, saying, do not create panic among citizens and customers, acknowledging the fact that this sort of messaging we've been talking about for the last 2-3 weeks has created a sense of panic among citizens and among customers from various agencies. So will we need the Supreme Court, Kailash Vasudev, to rescue us repeatedly at this rate?
See, Mr. Zuzai, it's not a question of the Supreme Court rescuing us. The Supreme Court is carrying out its constitutional duties and saying that, look, hold your hands. We are in the process of deciding the matter. But first, I owe you an apology. I'm not carrying my Aadhaar card just now. The fact is,
on this show, it's not necessary to furnish your Aadhaar
it is becoming
details.
A situation.
We believe you are who you say you are.
Okay. All right, I'll keep that for later. So, as I said, it is becoming a situation in terrorism. We are coming to a situation where everything. Yesterday's shocking revelation to me was from a local school here. Some students, some EWS students going for the class 10 examinations. They were asked to present their Aadhaar cards. Where? For what? Now, they belong to the EWS. Some of them didn't have an Aadhaar card, so they came running home to me saying that, sir, we have to register ourselves for the class 10 examinations next year. They've asked us for Aadhaar cards. What do we do? I said, well, ask your parents to get you Aadhaar cards because without that you can't study. Now, this is the situation we are coming down to. Forget banks, forget your telephone industry, forget everything else. But children, education, ration cards. Where is the linkage of all this to your Aadhaar? A child won't get education because she doesn't have an Aadhaar? Because she is poor? Is this what we are coming down to? Everything is becoming Aadhaar linked. And I'm sorry, I'm getting agitated because as a lawyer, we receive all sorts of situations which come on our desks. When we see these kind of situations, just now we are told that now you will have to do it, security of the state, security of the bank account. You think the bank is not good enough to maintain the security of my accounts without the Aadhaar card? Is it necessary for the bank to have my security or say that I'm holding out your security by keeping your Aadhaar card? What were you doing for the past 40 years? You were releasing all my information to all and sundry. Today you will release it. There'll be no security. I'm sorry, I'm angry, I'm agitated. I'm agitated for those many children who came to me yesterday. And I must tell you a personal incident. I went to the bank for the purposes of doing some banking work. The bank manager, Mr. Vasudev, sir, please give us your Aadhaar card. I said, I'm not giving it. Then it'll be difficult to transact. I said, I'll shut the account and go to another bank. Immediately my job was done. I mean, where is the sanctity of all these orders and decisions? I feel it personally yesterday. The least I can say is I hope the Supreme Court is consistent in its views on the right of privacy as decided by 9 judges. They're bound to follow their judgment, but how much they can tweak it, I don't know. I hope they don't.
I want to bring in Vijay Jolly again. Vijay Jolly, some time ago on this channel, Dr. Subramanian Swamy spoke to us and he said categorically that he expects the Supreme Court to strike down Aadhaar altogether, to remove it, have it wound down because he believes it is a threat to national security. Kailash Vasudev saying that he believes that it oversteps its bounds in terms of privacy, and there are so many things wrong with Aadhaar right now. Why isn't the government fixing these problems before forcing it down the neck and around the neck of every Indian? What is going on? Where is the need right now for the government to make Aadhar mandatory and get us all on board? And do you agree with Subramanian Swamy from your party that it is a threat to national security?
The question is directed to me?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Mr. Jolly.
Well, you see, every individual or every leader, left or right or center, have their own opinions. And I don't wish to comment on any other senior leader's opinion on such matters. But you have to appreciate, it is the government of India which has come out with its own affidavit in the Supreme Court stating fresh dates of 6th February and 31st of March as far as linking Aadhar to mobile phones or bank accounts. It is not the Supreme Court which has accepted the litigants' plea to enforce a total ban on Aadhar linkages. Number two, I do agree with you, and I wish to congratulate the Times Mirror for playing a watchdog and a very active role in putting the whole matter in the right perspective. And in democracy, people's rights are best protected by the government of the day, and the present government has a very, very open and positive mindset on the whole subject. If it works, if it ensures the rules of the day to be implemented, it is termed undemocratic, and if it does not, then it is termed, Kiji, you are opening and you are allowing the system to go haywire. Where is the problem if the government of the day decide that Aadhar in the long run has to be linkaged over not only to the banking system, not only to the mobile system and the mobile companies.
Mr. Vijay Jolly, the problem is in security, the problem is in privacy, the problem is in sanctity, the problem is in the safety of the information, the problem is in the last mile connectivity of the people who are collecting the data, the people who are managing the data, the people who are running the data. There is a problem in everything. So while the government at the top of its ivory tower may think that everything is honky-dory, it is not on the ground. The people who are making entries are making mistakes. The people who are managing the data are making mistakes. There are leakages. We have WikiLeaks telling us that the CIA has access to this database. We know that there are contracts that were signed in 2010 that allow the people who wrote the software to still hold data for the 7 years after that. So Subramanian Swamy is telling us it's a problem of national security. He's telling us don't link your cards because you will actually be putting more data onto a sinking ship. And I want to bring in Ritesh Bhatia here. Mr. Jolly said that this government is very careful about cyber security and about security of data. Do you believe that?
No, I don't think so, because, if you see from the moment that this panic has been created, the number of frauds have increased, the cyber frauds. Earlier we had one fraud happening every 20 minutes or so. Now it has become like one fraud every 7 minutes. And in a day, Faye, I'll tell you, yes, we are getting, at least in the community itself, or I'll tell you my personal case also, I'm getting 2 calls every day wherein the funds have been transferred because a pressure is being put up. Somebody is, faking and saying, ki, okay, just give us your OTP number, otherwise I'm going to stop your account or your mobile phone immediately. And that person immediately says, okay, and this guy pretends to be from a particular bank or from, yes, a mobile operator. So frauds is a big thing. The other thing is forgery. We've never, there is a pub close to my house. Over there, all these miners come, and then there is a printer store also next to it. These guys, the college students, they download the Aadhar because it's not a physical card. It's not a card. It was never supposed to be a card. It was supposed to be an identity. Yeah. They just download the card. They just change the date of birth so that they become 18-year-old, and they just take a printout. So that's another thing is happening. That's forgery. A big time forgery is happening over there. And then fake cards. So these 3 Fs, a lot of fake cards, a lot of forged cards and financial frauds are happening because of this panic, because of the execution. And Mohan sir has also said it's a very poor execution. And
financial frauds, fake cards and forgeries. Interesting alliteration there. I'm going to open up this panel right now. If anyone wants to jump in, please raise your hand and let me know. Mohammed Khan hasn't spoken yet. Mohammed Khan, go ahead.
Can I just come in for
a minute?
Yes, all right. Kailash Vasudev has a point to make. Mohammed Khan, I'll come to you immediately after that.
Jolly Sahab,
One second. Kailash Vasudev.
Mr. Vasudev, please,
I wanted to just come in.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
I want to go back 15 years in time. 15 years ago, we survived on ration cards. We survived on permissions and permits given to us by the government. When the ration cards came 50 years ago, there was a fraud. When the driving licenses came, there were frauds. When the PAN cards came, there were frauds. The Aadhar card has come, there are frauds. Passports, there have been frauds. Please tell me the word fraud is associated with all vital documents, including banking. Cannot the government enforce the law under the respective acts to prevent frauds? First. Second, today you give your entire information for the purposes of the Aadhar card. It is becoming mandatory, it's becoming a way of life, you are being terrorized into it or whatever. Tomorrow the Supreme Court strikes it down. Will they efface this data or will it be available to third parties? What steps will be taken for the purposes of restitution of these vital information pertaining to an individual citizen from those who have been licensed under the Act to obtain this information? 3 questions. Fraud, restitution of data, what is the government doing to rectify this?
Nothing. There's no law as such.
Jolly,
we must have an answer.
Yes, we must have an answer. Mohammed Khan, make your point and then I'll ask Vijay Jolly to answer that question.
Yeah. I think I have something to say on this.
Jolly Sahab, I just have 3 very, very quick points to make. I listened very carefully to what you were saying. First, I want to tell you that do you know the number of schemes that you have linked Aadhar to or made it mandatory for? It is 117 as of yesterday. Secondly, Jolly Sahab, today, 6 retired IAS officers of the ranks of Chief Secretary and Additional Chief Secretary, that's the highest possible rank available in the IAS, wrote to the Prime Minister a very detailed letter pointing out to him that there are several problems with Aadhar. Relying on their own experiences as administrators, they pointed out that there's a huge failure rate, there is a mismatch and the data is vulnerable. तीसरी बात जॉली साहब मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूँ, in August of this year, a young man, a young IIT Kharagpur graduate by the name of Abhinav Srivastav hacked into your Aadhar database. He hacked into your Aadhar database and you people were powerless to do anything. He exposed the vulnerabilities in the system. Last I heard, he's working for the BJP government. Thirdly, that was my third point, but I want to say this. Jolly Sahab, आज Supreme Court में जो हुआ, वो आपके लिए इसलिए महत्वपूर्ण है because Supreme Court actually said, and this is a very important observation, that if by the end of November no bench is constituted, then they will consider passing an interim order. They haven't ruled out an interim order. You said that because they've not agreed to give an order, they've rejected it. That's not true. They've deferred it. Huge difference. Finally, Jolly Sahab, I will tell you more and more about the failings in the system. For example, eyes and fingerprints not matching, lack of internet in rural areas, forgeries, as other panelists have pointed out, and also the fact that this is illegal because you've gone the money bill route and there's nothing in this bill which satisfies the requirement of a money bill. You did it only to evade debate in the Rajya Sabha, Jolly Sahab. So when you say you're a people-friendly government, and this is the point I'll conclude on, when you say you're a people-friendly government, I'm very sorry, I don't take it at face value. अगर मैं एक नाग पाल लूं, कोबरा पाल लूं, वो आपसे ज़्यादा people-friendly होगा. That's all I want to say.
We must remember here that Mohammed Khan is the spokesperson of the Congress party when he makes those statements.
It is the people's mandate which matters, sir. आप पीपल्स मैंडेट को नाग पालने के साथ तुलना कर रहे हैं. I have doubts on your intelligence to comment on such a matter of such a severity and such an importance
क्योंकि आपकी हरकतें ऐसी हैं, आपने सिविल सोसाइटी को स्टोन वॉल कर दिया है.
आप डेमोक्रेसी के अंदर इस बात की तुलना कर रहे हैं, नाग पालने की तुलना डेमोक्रेटिक सिस्टम को चलाने वालों से कर रहे हैं. कमाल कर दिया आपने.
सर, डेमोक्रेसी में तो आप इसे मनी बिल क्लासिफाई क्यों किया? फिर आप घबरा गए डिबेट से राज्यसभा में जहां आपकी मेजॉरिटी नहीं थी. डेमोक्रेसी का उल्लंघन तो आप लोगों ने किया है. यू हैव अंडरमाइंड द वेरी कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ पार्लियामेंट्री डेमोक्रेसी बाय सबवर्टिंग डिबेट इन द राज्यसभा.
We tend to lose about 10 or 15 minutes of debate every week to a Congress BJP bickering.
So of any debate inside the parliament and outside the parliament.
Mohan Guruswamy has a point to make. Mohan Guruswamy, please go.
Of the government is stuck by the
gentlemen,
still
not in
welcome
Parliament.
that. Because my government is very open in its mindset, and this is the reason why at the outset I said my government does not have a cohesive mindset. We are very open to the whole system. सिस्टम को ठीक करने में अगर कहीं गलतियां भी हो जाएंगी और वो भी राइट,
लेकिन विजय जी, सुब्रमण्यम स्वामी का कहना है कि सिस्टम ठीक नहीं हो सकती, इसको पूरा का पूरा स्क्रैप करना पड़ेगा आपको.
That nobody is getting these messages.
मैं सुब्रमण्यम स्वामी जी की बात के ऊपर टीका टिप्पणी करने के लिए आपके चैनल में नहीं आया हूं
जी. तो अच्छा ठीक है, ऑलराइट. सो इफ यू डोंट वांट टू रिस्पॉन्ड टू समवन फ्रॉम योर ओन पार्टी,
मैं तो ये आपको बताने के लिए आया हूं, मेरी सरकार की सोच सकारात्मक है, पॉजिटिव है, उस पॉजिटिव राह के ऊपर आगे बढ़ रही है. हो सकता है इस पूरी
सरकार ने आज अपने वकीलों
gentlemen, I want to, Mohan Guru Swami has a point to make. I want to hear what he has to say. I can't hear him right now. Gentlemen, please, Mohan Guru Swami, please go ahead.
You see, there's a misconception about Aadhar. The data they want is not much. They just want your photograph, your address, and your fingerprint. They're linking it together. That's it. But when you start linking it to other things, to hospital records, to school records, to to a halwai shop bills and everything, that's when the problem begins. Then you have the ability. You're giving the state the ability to track all your movements and your activities. That you don't want. But to link it to a bank account to make sure that there's no benami accounts, the fraudulent transactions, I think it's fair. It's a good thing to link it with yes. mass community, with telephones, which gives you the ability to speak to any part of the country, all over the world. Is a good thing because people want to know, because phones are used by criminals also a lot. So the state has a right to know who's talking to who at certain times, on certain numbers. So I think there it's okay, but when you start extending it, that's when people start getting worried. Why does the state want to know when you went to the hospital? Why does the state want to know what disease you're suffering from? All these things are where there's cause for concern, and people don't really trust governments to be fair and judicious in use of such information. I don't think the state needs that information. I think the BJP government should step off one step bit and get out of this zealousness thing. Everything will be linked to Aadhar. That is where you got to stop. Aadhar was a good idea. It came from the UPA. Basically, it was to register of citizenships. People who are citizens of the country are in that register. And that was, leave it at that. Don't mess around with it.
Intended to deliver subsidies to the poorest of the poor.
And what they're doing is, earlier the database,
so very good.
all types of data was stored in different silos, I would say. So the passports was with the passport department, your ration card was with the. Now what you have done, now you have merged all the silos. Now when you have merged all the silos, just imagine like you put all the eggs in one basket and this basket falls. What is going to happen? Your daily life will just come to a halt. And as Mohan sir said, yeah, it's right. I mean,
So I'm going to paint a slightly, futuristic. I want you to tell me if this is possible or not. Let's assume we link everything.
Yeah.
So my bank account, my PAN card, my phone records, my hospital records, everything is linked to this one entity, and somebody gets hold of it on the internet. They have the ability to lock me out of my own life.
Absolutely. They will target you, they'll snoop you, they will profile you, they'll market, they'll do certain kind of marketing. And let's not forget that, this snooping and surveillance, what we are thinking on is only our government doing. No, it's not like that. When WikiLeaks has said something like this, not that WikiLeaks is a gospel or anything, but earlier also it has been proved several times about as far as this database is concerned, when the L1 systems and the cross-match, they came over here. They have been given access to the data, and US always wanted the data and the biometrics of the entire world. Forget India, sir. And
but the US has privacy, whether or not the government of America actually follows its privacy laws. The US has privacy laws,
and we don't have.
We don't have privacy laws right now. Raghu Godafar of Rethink Aadhar. I found it very interesting that Dr. Swami today said that Aadhar should be scrapped entirely, as opposed to all of the other senior BJP representatives who've told us that there are flaws and we should fix the flaws over time. He was the first person to tell us he believes it should be scrapped entirely.
It cannot be fixed, first of all.
It cannot be fixed? You don't believe it can be fixed? Raghu, go ahead.
Well, Faye, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Faye, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Look, first of all, this is what I said. You know, it's more than rethink Aadhar. You know, we have to examine the system for what its efficiency is. We have to examine the system entirely because it is not delivering on any of its promises. The overreach that has been discussed today, it has been discussed before, is something that's almost expected of a system which has so much power in it. You know, why would someone not use it? The other day I called it a Frankenstein monster, and that's exactly what it has become. You know, the fact remains that today you talked about the scenario where you have every single database connected and the kind of problems that can arise from that. So that is not a scenario anyone has considered so far. Coming back to just today's the hearing, the directions that the Supreme Court has given. First of all, I do not see any reason to celebrate what has been said today. Nothing new has been said. The status quo remains the same. If you go back to the Lokniti Foundation order, the order in that case, the February 2018 deadline for re-verification of mobile subscribers exists since then. The government has not extended that deadline. And even the affidavit filed this morning by the government says that they may extend the deadline for linking Aadhar to your bank accounts. They have not gone ahead and said they are extending. This may is an open question. They may do it, they may not do it. So there are no guarantees to the average person on the street that the coercion is going to end with this order. I've said in the past that Supreme Court orders have been violated. Every single agency asking people to link Aadhar today is in contempt of Supreme Court because they are pushing it, they're making it mandatory, whereas it has to be strictly voluntary. Yeah. If I go into a bank, they cannot deny me service because I do not have an Aadhar. And let me tell you this, let me tell this panel here that I have not even applied for an Aadhar because I do not believe it is necessary. I have enough identity proofs as a citizen of India. I have a passport, I have a PAN card. Each of this has a specific link to it, each offers me a specific service, and I'm perfectly happy with that. And if you examine the efficacy of services where Aadhar has been linked, there is actually a decline over time, and the problems have become more magnified even as the system grows. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the people in charge of the system have continued to be lackadaisical about it. They have not bothered to address flaws that were seen from the beginning. And as a consequence, now there are people waiting to exploit those flaws. Yeah. If people are saying that there aren't enough Aadhar leaks, the affidavit this morning, for example, I happened to see a few pages. Nobody has access to the full PDF yet. But the government is denying that there have been starvation deaths. Yeah. The government is denying that there have been any denial of benefits because of lack of linking of Aadhar. That is an outright lie.
Yeah. It's very interesting. We have some interesting comments coming in on our involved page. Just sorry, 1 second. Survey says the government is making through. Yes. 1 second. Survey says the government is making a song and dance of Aadhar. I hope the Supreme Court scraps it. Ishwar says, Faye, it seems like you have more discussions on Aadhar than the government had on Aadhar before it made its decisions. Adrian says, why is the Aadhar not replacing the voter card? That would actually be a good use for it. Why do children need it? That's a joke, says Adrian. There's someone else who wrote in to us. This is Divya Motwani. I work in the villages of Rajasthan. I know how many old ladies have failed to get their wages because they don't have fingerprints that are matching. And the messages go on like that. A couple of people on the phone line. Abhishek Chaudhary from Kolkata. Abhishek Chaudhary, go ahead, please. Abhishek? All right, we'll try and get Abhishek. Sen Gupta from Navi Mumbai, go ahead.
Hello, madam.
Yes. Go ahead.
Can you hear me, madam?
Yes, we can, Mr. Gupta. Go ahead.
Madam, I, as a normal citizen, I would not like to comment on whether the merits or demerits of this Aadhar, because the distinguished panel here is more competent enough to decide on its positives and the negatives.
Yes.
But the thing is that I have a small problem which I want to highlight to the people, those who are forcing us to put this Aadhar.
Yes.
My wife had an Aadhar card. This time while filing the income tax return, she filed it. She got the refund back. So for filing the refund, Aadhar card was mandatory. We quoted the Aadhar card. She got back the return. After the return had reached her bank, then what had happened? Suddenly, the UIDAI, they had deactivated some around 18 lakhs of Aadhar card, in which her number is also deactivated. Now what has happened is, there were a lot of private centers where we could pay about 150 rupees and get it done. There was a court case for which, against which they have stopped all these private agencies. Now, I as a senior citizen, I am accompanying my wife for the last 5 days. Each day I have stood for minimum 4 to 5 hours in the queue. My number did not come. Yesterday, what happened? Fortunately, when the number came, she puts for the biometrics, she puts her fingerprint.
And we've had a lot of these problems coming in. Hiren Gokhani, if I said that right, is on the phone line from Mumbai. Hiren, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, Hiren.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Yeah. My question is to the representatives of the government and each and everyone who is advocating Aadhar. I just want to know if they are pretty sure about the security of our data.
Yes.
If they are, will they mind making each and every top officials, right from the finance minister to the MDs and the chairmen of the banks, communication companies and everyone, made liable to their civil as well as criminal liabilities in case of any breach or misuse of our data?
Who will be liable? That's a very good question. Last question, Abhishek Chaudhary from Kolkata. Abhishek Chaudhary, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, I would like to thank you, channel, at first for upholding such a great issue that is debatable and Supreme Court's verdict regarding this. But I would like to express my views regarding this, that, ma'am, if the Aadhar provides or will successfully provide benefits to all the citizens of India, then I appreciate the entire process. If we are also able to keep the dignity and safety of the customers and providers. And secondly, the Supreme Court's verdict and your upholding of the issue and the government stance all should be meticulously looked up again and again by Supreme Court, and that issues also be highlighted by your channel. That is my view right now, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Let me take this question to Vijay Jolly. Vijay Jolly, question number 1. Will officials, finance minister downwards, be responsible for when we lose money in the fraud that Ritesh was talking about? Question number 2. In the last few weeks, 6 very senior IAS officers, the All India Bank Officers Association and Dr. Subramanian Swamy have all written to the government saying this is a very bad idea, please stop. Apparently, the government will not stop unless the Supreme Court tells it to do so. Why is that?
You see, before any government scheme starts off, there are certain sustained efforts to pull down the scheme.
From
if the Indian soldiers are at the Indian borders, if you please let me complete my statement, please.
Okay.
If the Indian soldiers at the Indian borders, on the government of India's directions, are there to defend the Indian porous borders with Pakistan and China.
Actually, you know, allow me, I'm going to interrupt you, Mr. Vijay Jolly. On this channel, we don't talk about Pakistan. I cover India on the channel. And Pakistan is not a point of conversation. Let's not bring the army into it. Let's not bring Pakistan into it. I want to know whose advice is the government taking? Not the IAS officers, not senior members, not members of parliament. So, whose advice is the government taking on this particular account? Please tell us.
Not civil society.
Before the government of India policies are tested on the ground, you cannot raise certain doubts about their efficiency.
Sir, yes, they were tested on the ground in 12 and 13. You people opposed them.
We can. It's called democracy,
power and had a new awakening.
No, of course we can raise questions. That's what a democracy is for.
What suddenly we came to power? The people of India got us back to power. The people of India voted us to power.
Sir, not for this. Had they been aware of what you would do during your term in power, they would be reconsidering their decision right now.
Let's not get derailed by election squabbling. Mr. Jolly, how does... I completely agree. You won 2014 with a whopping majority and you have won several state elections after that, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the question I have asked you.
There might be shortcomings. Those shortcomings have to be debated, have to be accepted, have to be corrected. And if those loopholes are corrected in the wider interest of the Indian citizens' security in the long run, it is all the good for everyone. But before the system is time tested, don't tear it down.
Then, sir,
it is not
why not
So we've had, okay, fair enough. So Vijay Jolly says that you can debate the shortcomings. One second. Vijay Jolly says you can debate the shortcomings, and if the shortcomings are actually fixed, it's good for everyone. I'm concerned about the fact that you said if the shortcomings are fixed. The shortcomings are not debatable at this point. We've talked about them threadbare. We've proven them on this channel. There are several problems. Several problems. I want to point out that Mohan Guruswamy, the first time he came onto the channel, and he still remains a hard supporter of Aadhar as a concept, but there are so many questions to be asked about how this is actually being implemented. Thomas Franco had a point to make. Go ahead, Mr. Franco.
One, I do not agree with Mr. Mohan Guruswamy saying that by Aadhar linkage you are going to clean up the accounts. Already all these accounts have been verified with the Know Your Customer norms. For last few months, banks have been asked to do the KYC compliance, which we have completed almost. And this Aadhar card itself is not a safe card, and we have discussed earlier also. It can be duplicated. There are 49,000 frauds because of which these companies which were enrolling have been delisted or blacklisted. And another aspect is that for everything, they make banks and bankers as a punching bag. Yes. Demonetization, they did not give adequate money, but they were saying that cash is available with the banks and customers were fighting with the bankers. Now we are searching where is the black money. Second, they have forced so many schemes on the banks, like the pension schemes, insurance schemes, for which the banks are not getting any incentive also. Now you are forcing this Aadhar linkage for which you don't give manpower, you are not providing technology in time, and then there is so much of problem coming up, and again you keep on punching the bankers that Franco, you are overstepping.
Yes, so a lot of this has been said today that it was the bankers who overstepped, it was the bankers who were overzealous, the bankers were the ones sending out these stern messages, nobody asked them to do so. What's your response to that?
Why the bankers should be overzealous at all? What is their interest? What are the banks going to gain by linking this Aadhar? Nothing. It is because of the pressure. Now the pressure has started mounting from more agencies. Correct. Earlier it was only Finance Ministry and Reserve Bank of India. As you rightly pointed out, Reserve Bank of India is losing credibility day by day. They should have entered into this field. They should have told that government that you are overstepping. Why do you force these things so much on the bankers?
All right.
And now the IT Ministry is monitoring. UIDA is monitoring. Everybody is questioning.
One correction.
There are too many agencies. All right. Kailash Vasudev had a point to make. Mr. Vasudev, go ahead.
Yeah. What I was saying was the gentleman asked whether he can initiate proceedings and prosecutions against those who may disclose your identity post-Aadhar.
No, we can't actually.
Unfortunately, under the Act, it is only the authority which is entitled to initiate prosecutions. I fail to understand why the individual whose rights have been violated by handing over data to third parties or he claims compensation for damage done to him, they are confining it to the right of the authority under the Act. If the authority chooses not to act, you mean to say you're going to preclude my rights? See, your fundamental right to seek recompense or to seek compensation or to seek relief has been taken away and handed over to an authority which may or may not act. Now, on the Aadhar itself, you are making it mandatory for everybody. So the entire nation, 125 crore people, 130 crore people, will come within the ambit and scope of the Aadhar. Do you realize the kind of data you will be handling? You are handling the data of everybody, including those holding sensitive posts on this.
What data?
Whether you're the chief of an intelligence bureau, CBI, police, army, navy, air force, whatever. All that a good man has to do is break into this system, take up the data of the individual who's in a position of high rank, maybe the President of India, Vice President, I don't know, works, and utilize it for all sorts of fraud purposes or for purposes of misuse against the interests of the nation. Is someone going to be answerable for that, or we will let the nation go to hell? You've got to have some kind of a restriction, some kind of a sensible approach to this.
How will the data be misused this way?
You cannot permit
it's only your
everything
name
to
and
come
your fingerprint.
on the World Wide Web.
All right,
and
Mohan
then say
Guruswamy.
that, no, I'm sorry, only the UIDA can prosecute you.
Mohan Guruswamy.
Faye, can I add something to what Mr. Vasudev is saying?
I think we should not stretch these years too far. What is the data you're parting with? It's just your name, your address and your fingerprint.
No, Mr. Guruswamy. I'm parting with data of who I called, what I looked at on the internet, how much money I made, how much money I spent, where I travelled and what I did.
Cross-linking it. You know, that is when you're cross-linking it. That is when you're cross-linking it. But if you just give this data to the bank, that is to avoid a fraudulent account. That is why Aadhar was originally
conceived. Absolutely. Mr. Guruswamy, our problem is with the cross-linking, not with Aadhar fundamentally. Our question is with the cross-linking, not with Aadhar, with the linking. In fact, Raghu Godavar is probably the only person who's sleeping well at night because he has neither an Aadhar number nor has he linked it to anything.
You know, that's ridiculous here.
Mohammed Khan, go ahead. Mohammed Khan.
Yeah. Just three very quick points. First is this. Look, Mr. Jolly, it is very imperative that you hear this. Your lawyer today, the representative of the government, first denied the fact that anyone was receiving messages. He said, this is a panic created by the banks. You refuse to take blame. You know what Justice Sikri then said? He said, we ourselves are receiving these messages. He said, this is only oral evidence. He said, nonetheless, we are receiving these messages. He contradicted your counsel. Number two, it's very important, Mr. Guruswamy, for you to understand that Aadhar, as it was actually conceived, was limited to certain very specific schemes. I know this because I was there. We carried out pilots and we saw that there were various problems. And Mr. Jolly, I would love to hear how you overcame those problems, particularly with regard to the fact that there's a high failure rate. And you know, Mr. Jolly, a question that was asked of us at the time, is, what are the steps we are taking to ensure secrecy of data? We were still working on it. It seems you've cracked the equation. Do you know in UK in 2012, they scrapped their national register because they couldn't guarantee the security of the data. You've expanded the data enormously. Just tell me how you've guaranteed the safety.
That's right.
What are the changes you've brought in? Because you've completely stonewalled civil society from all discussion.
Right. So, last word to Vijay Jolly. Vijay Jolly, here's the questions. Several people have problems with what is going on. And I'm going on record to point out that we are not against that. I'm personally, I was one of the first people when Aadhar came up, I was so excited to actually sign on because I thought it was such a wonderful thing that people who really deserved benefits from the government would receive benefits from the government. And this was several years ago. The question is with the linking. Far beyond the brief of what Aadhar was meant to do. Going into school fees and children being able to answer their exams, like Mr. Vasudev pointed out, they're asking for it at driver's license, asking for it at train stations, asking for it at airports at this point. You know, Mr. Guruswamy also, I think, pointed out that he's lost all his Air India mileage points because he didn't link his Aadhar card to his Air India frequent flyer program. And one wonders, why is that, you know, in any way relevant? The question is, obviously, the UADI at this point has lost control. It doesn't know who's asking for this data and why they're asking for the data and what authority. Isn't it time for the government to just stop, step back and take stock of this situation? Say, okay, we're going to stop. We're not going to ask anybody to link anything to anything until we plug the loop, the leaks in the system, because there are so many leaks in the system. People are dying, Mr. Jolly, from starvation and lack of access to medicines and pensions and hospitals because of this Aadhar nonsense.
The government denied it in their affidavit.
Yeah.
Which the government is denying in court. But don't you think the government should step back and introspect?
I do agree with you on certain points. I do agree with you on certain suggestions which have come on this panel. It is not a question of moving forward or moving backward, but of course the suggestions which do come forward and the leakages which do contribute to the people's suffrages, they have to be taken into account by the government of the day, whether it is my government or your government. The government of the days have to perform according to the people's aspirations and expectations. And I do hope people in the government who are monitoring this panel's discussion, not only they, but you and me and other panelists will also do whatever is within our ways and means to impress upon the people in the system to bring out adequate policies, adequate papers before the Supreme Court, before it takes a final call on this whole matter, so that the leakages are plugged in and the people of India really feel satisfied what the government of India had envisaged, either from the days of UPA over to the days of NDA today.
Right, I have to wrap up this conversation here. Okay, Mr. Franco, very quickly. The
problem I just want to point out that the people who have approached the Supreme Court are all very learned people. Mr. M.G. Devasahayam IAS has a very renowned career, who had been with the army, is an economist and a retired IAS officer. And similarly, all these applicants, they have gone in there because now they have a fear that democracy is under attack and there is a surveillance Raj taking place, and we are seeing in the bank that the customers are having so much of difficulty because of this. That is why we have gone to the court. So the government should come up with a proper discussion with the people to decide finally.
So to do the bankers now, and your officers of public sector banks owned by the government, do you want now to not do the linking yourself, to not have the linking at all, or to scrap Aadhar completely?
We would like that this linkage is not forced.
The linkage is not forced.
Yes.
Kailash Vasudev, do you believe that Aadhar should be scrapped completely, or you would just have a problem with the linkage at this point?
I believe it should be scrapped completely. Because if it is for the purposes for which the Act has been framed, financial benefit and subsidiaries, have it from those who are receiving these benefits, others for the others, it should go. Here is a thing on a lighter vein I was just thinking. See, there's a particular person who has got a loan account from the bank.
Right.
So there's a call from the bank. Look, mister, please link up your Aadhar card. He says, what will happen if you don't link up? He says, then we will be very happy to freeze your account. This gentleman says, I'm not giving my Aadhar. Go freeze my account. What happens to the bank's money?
Right. That is true. I've run out of time. A yes or no answer, Ritesh Bhatia. Do you think the problems can be fixed, or do you think it should be scrapped completely?
No. The problems cannot be fixed. Either you scrap it or you have to go and re-verify each and every record. Because so as I told you last time,
2 billion people you have to sit and verify.
As I told you, it's garbage in, garbage out. So there's a lot of garbage.
All right, what we will also do is we'll call Ritesh on another day, and we'll actually talk about, if you've already got your Aadhar, what you should be doing to keep your Aadhar details and all of your other details safe. We've run out of time today, but here's where it stands. For the benefit of all of the people who are going to call you, either from the bank or from the telephone company, tell them very, very clearly that the deadline now is the 31st of March for bank accounts, and you are not compelled in any way to do anything until the 30th of March. The deadline for the phones is now the 6th of February, and you are not compelled to do anything. There is no coercive action that can be done until then. The Supreme Court has been completely clear about it, and the Supreme Court has also told all banks and phone companies to stop sending threatening emails. And I'm going to assume this will also then apply to mutual funds and insurance companies and your airline and the Indian Railways and anybody else who's asking you for the Aadhar right now, including school principals. Please tell them to refer to the Supreme Court's the affidavit that the Government of India presented to the Supreme Court today, and the Supreme Court's response to that. In fact, I'm actually going to end the show here and by telling everybody not to share any sort of OTP, not to share any sort of details with anybody about your Aadhar over a phone line. Anyone who makes a call to you, this is a public service announcement. Do not share Aadhar details over the phone to anybody at all. The number of frauds that were happening in Hyderabad, we understand 40 lakh rupees have been stolen by an Aadhar fraud thing that happened, and pensioners have lost their money. So this is where it stands right now. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has come in one more time to rescue the average Indian. You don't have to share your Aadhar details, not at least until the 31st of March. Thanks for watching.